Commander Collection Black is a weird beast. On the surface, it looks very similar to a signature spellbook, but underneath, it's an interesting romp through Magic's history.
The Magic Historian.
Greetings, owners of fine luxury cardboard rectangles. My friends, I hope the day finds you well because we are here to talk about Commander Collection Black. And as I said, it does feel like a weird amalgamation of Magic's history and signature spellbooks. However, signature spellbooks are all done through the lens of one particular planeswalker, so this is a somewhat different beast. But overall, it gives me the same kind of vibes with the collected mini set of cards. So I have to say, I am really enthused about some of the choices that they have made for this particular set. Now, the first card we're going to look at is Liliana. Now, this is Liliana before she became a planeswalker. This is essentially the card that tells the story of how she became a planeswalker. And that's probably part of the reason that it makes it feel like a signature spellbook, because this is literally where Liliana came from. So Liliana was originally the daughter of a nobleman, and she ended up destroying her brother in a horrific way. So let's go through the mechanics of the card, and I'll give you a little bit more details about that. So, 2 black and 1 for a 2/3 legendary human cleric with lifelink. Whenever another non-token creature you control dies, exile Liliana Heretical Healer, then return her to the battlefield transformed under her owner's control. If you do, create a 2/2 black zombie creature token. So this is the tragic backstory to Liliana. She was the daughter of a rich nobleman, okay? But obviously, when you're a nobleman, you're powerful, you got powerful enemies. So her father had enemies that went ahead and poisoned Liliana's brother, Josu. Now, Liliana had been studying to be a healer. This is part of the tragedy. She ultimately wanted to save people's lives, but she also dabbled in secret in necromantic magic, but from the viewpoint that if she could understand this death magic, that would actually aid and enhance her healing magic. So it wasn't the evil style of necromancy, but it's still clearly black aligned, right? So what happens is Liliana wants to cure her brother. Now, the only thing that can cure Liliana's brother's affliction are the roots of the Essus tree. Unfortunately, when she sets out to find these trees, it turns out that her father's enemies are a step ahead. They've already burned all the groves of Essus trees to the ground. Now into the picture comes the Ragman, a shadowy figure who tells Liliana that if she is to use necromantic magic to revive the Essus trees and then brew a potion from their roots, that it will still cure her brother. And this wasn't a lie, but it also didn't reveal the full situation. So Liliana brews this potion, administers it to her brother. It does indeed cure the affliction that he has, but at a terrible price. He's inflicted with a different sort of disease that ends up destroying him and reanimating him as a zombie. So if you look at the ability on this card, that's what's going on. Josu is destroyed and comes back as a 2/2 zombie, and Liliana's spark ignites under the stress of it. And to add to the coolness, check this out. This is the 2/2 zombie token that comes along with the kit. And it's literally Josu. That is Josu depicted in the artwork. It's absolutely amazing. The flavor level on this is through the roof. This is not your normal everyday mindless zombie. In fact, Josu ends up becoming like a lich lord, which is absolutely crazy, and Liliana has to come back and put him down. But this is the coolest zombie token I have ever seen. And the way that it ties into Liliana is amazing. Now, let's take a look at the Planeswalker side of Liliana, because not only does it do the cool token making, it flips into this version of Liliana, the Defiant Necromancer. First ability, +2, each player discards a card. -X, return target non-legendary creature card with mana value X from your graveyard to the battlefield. And I really love that that ability makes it feel like she hasn't really come to full terms with her necromantic capabilities yet. She's new to it. So she can animate everyday zombies, but she can't do anything with legendary creatures, right? She can animate other ones and bring them back with the semblance of themselves intact, which is really cool. And then the -8 ability is you get an emblem with whenever a creature dies, return it to the battlefield under your control at the beginning of the next end step. So basically, it shows the progression that as you go along, she gains necromantic power to the point where she can just raise up everybody, which is awesome. And the artwork is so good. I love the downcast look on her face, this contemplative sort of everything that I've lost kind of vibe to it. That's really, really cool, man. It looks absolutely fantastic. And look what she's holding in her hands as it's like drifting away. And oh, it's so epic. And the purple of her clothing really stands out, dude. This is some really evocative artwork. I dig this variation quite a bit. Now, Lillian is not the only thing we have to talk about. We have other cool characters. We've got Ghoul Caller Geesa. Sounds like a bunch of geese. 2 black and 3 for a 3/4 legendary human wizard. This is a different variation of Necromancer. 1 black and tap, sacrifice another creature, create X 2/2 black zombie creature tokens, where X is the sacrificed creature's power. The flavor text says, "Come now, dear brother. If you wanted rules, you should have called it a game, not a war." And this is quoting Geesa talking to her brother, Giraffe. So basically, these two individuals are locked in this necromantic battle, and Geesa tends to favor the black side of necromancy, whereas Giraffe tends to favor the blue side of necromancy. This is set on the world of Innistrad, where you have traditional style of necromancy, which is black, and then the blue style of necromancy, which is more Dr. Frankenstein, like stitching people together and reanimating the amalgam of them. I mean, in some cases, you're not really going to see that much of a difference, but it's really the difference between raising zombies and making a Frankenstein monster. Now, I love the fact that the artwork depicts her in the middle of activating her ability. Like 1 black tap, sack another creature. There she is. She just takes a shovel. It's like, boom, off with your head. And he's like, he's got his arms outstretched like he hasn't realized he's lost his head yet. I don't know if that's supposed to be an already undead individual. I'm guessing it probably is, especially because it looks like there's bones sticking out in the arm. But just the way the hands are up, like, ow, my head. It's got a lot of fun to it. I'm not 100% sure how she's able to take one zombie and just if you have 1 2/2 zombie and sack it, then all of a sudden you get 2 2/2 zombies. How does that work? Is it because you chop the head off of one and then give it like little legs and pinchers and it comes at you, and then the body of the other one is just still running around capable of ripping people up? I don't know. I love the joyous look on her face as she has beheaded this zombie. She looks like a deranged bride who has escaped from her wedding and is just running around in the black gown, chopping off people's heads with shovels going, "Do you know where My Chemical Romance's Black Parade's gonna be? Because I'm properly dressed for it." Either way, I love it. Let's move on, because I'll talk about these cards forever. We've got Ophiomancer up next. 1 black and 2 for a 2/2 human shaman. At the beginning of each upkeep, if you control no snakes, create a 1/1 black snake creature token with Death Touch. That's amazing because it's literally every player's upkeep. So this is fantastic for a sack outlet, and also just for a nice little stay away from me blocker. You got a 1/1 Death Touch snake that doesn't mean anything to you. Of course I'm going to use it to block because I'm just going to get one next turn, so who cares? Great from that regard. The flavor text says, her writhing, boneless movements are unsettling to humans, but hypnotic to her serpent brood. And you see in the artwork, you've got her doing this crazy dance. There is a snake slithering around her and a whole bunch of other snakes just waiting in attendance, staring at her attentively. I like it. It's got like a half belly dancer kind of vibe to it. And the concept of this woman connecting with snakes on this level is fairly off-putting, and we also get a very cool token to go with it, which is the snake token that actually matches the decorations that she's wearing. So they tie together, and I like the fact that the patterning of the floor that this snake is on has a sinuous serpent feel to it as well. Although it's kind of funny, the snake does look a little bit silly if you stare too long at its eyes. It looks a little less menacing and a little more goofy, but overall, I like this token a lot. Then we've got Phyrexian Arena. 2 black and 1 for an enchantment. At the beginning of your upkeep, you draw a card and lose 1 life. The flavor text says, a whisper of authority rises over a cacophony of grinding machines. This is an arena full of Phyrexians. And this showed up in the original old school Urza storyline, where Urza is forced to face off in a Phyrexian arena against Gerard. And Gerard was created by Urza. Urza spent hundreds of years basically nudging people's bloodlines, getting people to marry and whatever, so that he could create particular heroes. And Gerard was supposed to be his crowning achievement that would help him destroy Yawgmoth. And Yawgmoth was the father of machines, the god of all the Phyrexians, right? So Yawgmoth ends up capturing Arena. No, sorry, not Arena. He ends up capturing Urza and Gerard and making them fight in the arena. So what was supposed to be Urza's salvation against Yawgmoth actually turns out to be his damnation as Yawgmoth twists it around on him. And in the arena, when they're fighting, there are thousands of Phyrexians watching, but every single one is Yawgmoth. So he's experiencing his triumph through thousands of minds at once. It's an amazing concept, man. I love the flavor. And this is a new piece of artwork with a different concept to it. I'm not 100% sure what they're going for with this. Maybe this is supposed to be Sheoldred having built a new Phyrexian arena, because it doesn't really have that Yawgmoth vibe to it. But it definitely gives the same sort of overwhelming menace and despair concept as some individual is being forced to fight off like a 4-legged Phyrexian beast in the arena. It makes me really curious to know, are we going to be getting to see this? Is this like a precursor to something we're actually going to be seeing in the storyline? This is a great include. Then we've got Reanimate. So Reanimate is 1 black for a sorcery. Put target creature card from a graveyard onto the battlefield under your control. You lose life equal to its mana value. When this card came out, a lot of people didn't like it because it came out many years ago and we were very dumb at analyzing cards, and we were overly concerned with cards that would make you pay life. So the idea of having to pay a bunch of life to reanimate a creature when you could just use some other spell to reanimate them seemed like a terrible idea. But through the lens of today, where you understand the power level, 1 mana to bring a creature back out of your graveyard, like, boom, that's worth it. Who cares how much life you have to pay? You're almost always going to come out ahead in this bargain. The flavor text says, death is a small price to pay for immortality. And that is a great quote. And it's attributed to Baron Senger. Baron Senger is a very interesting legendary vampire who has sired a long line of vampires that actually extend out across multiple different planes of existence. Because Baron Senger exists from the days where planeswalkers didn't create construct copies of creatures. They actually pulled the creature, the real Baron Senger, was pulled through the blind eternities to the location the Planewalker was at. So Baron Senger has actually been to multiple different worlds and sired his own line of vampires across multiple realms. I have to say, I still hold to the flavor that we as Planeswalkers summon up the original beast. The idea of them being a construct, it may help you sleep better at night if you feel bad morally about pulling these creatures through the blind aether, but to me, the idea of being a Planeswalker and finding these epic beings and summoning them to you and having them battle on your behalf is way more epic, and it will always be the lens through which I view Magic the Gathering. The artwork is really sweet, man. You can see this moon with this individual who's being reanimated. They're grasping at their throat. It looks like they were probably choked out. Somebody tied some kind of silk around their throat and choked them out. Now they're being lifted back up out of the grave, still probably grasping at their throat because this is a moment after it happened. Like, who knows how long it was between when they died and when they came back? It could have been hours, maybe a day at most, because if you look at it, there's no real rot or anything on this body. But either way, your life's ending as you're going, and then all of a sudden you're being reanimated. So the last thing you remember is blacking out as you can't breathe, and then all of a sudden you're alive again, but your brain's still fighting like, I don't want to die. But it's like, dude, you've moved past that. You have moved past the realm of death. And I love the subtlety of all the skulls that are flowing in the background. You might not notice it at first because you've got this figure rising into the sky, their hand outstretched in front of the moon with the bats flying around, and you've got the trees with their little sinuous fingers, their little branches like claws reaching out, but then behind it, you have a whole wave of undeath, these skulls that are lurking there. It's very atmospheric, and I like it very, very much. Moving on, we've got Toxic Deluge. 1 black and 2 for a sorcery. As an additional cost to cast this spell, pay X life. All creatures get -X until end of turn. And now my favorite part, the flavor text. I am greater than rain and nourishment. I am glistening oil and perfection. It's a quote from Yawgmoth! Man, I love it. The glistening oil is how Phyrexia propagates. It flows through Phyrexians. It is the lifeblood of Phyrexia. And if you actually take a look at the artwork, the first thing you're going to notice is that this rain is insanely toxic. Look how green it is. It's acidic. It's eating pits into the ground. The sky has a very sickly green and yellow vibe to it. And then when you actually take a closer look, you can see in the sky there in the middle, it's Yawgmoth. Look up there. It's Yawgmoth. He's in the clouds just raining doom down. And I love that it says, I am greater than rain and nourishment. I love this as a card concept so much. I'm a sucker for old school Yawgmoth references. This is so flavorful. Moving on. We've got the black aligned Sol Ring. Just like in the Commander Collection green, we got a Sol Ring where the ring was floating above a tree trunk. In this case, we have the accoutrements of a black mage. You've got skulls with candles in the eyes. You've got the Sol Ring itself, which is actually drawing in this black miasma. You may think at first that the black miasma is pouring out of it, but if you pay attention to the candles, you can see that they're being pulled in along with this dark magic. So Sol Ring, if you don't already know, is 1 mana to put out, tap to add 2. The crazy thing is I'm so used to Sol Ring. Every other card I read first. This one I just started talking about the flavor because I'm like, everybody knows Sol Ring. The flavor text says, deep within the Forsaken Cavern, a new shadow emerged to devour the light. This is awesome. The idea of Sol Rings that are particularly attuned to different colors is a lot of fun. It's all just cosmetic, right? It doesn't change the power that's emanating from it. Every Sol Ring gives neutral, colorless mana, but the flavor concept behind each Sol Ring is keyed to each color, and that is a winning concept. For me, I have to admit, I'm a mono green fan, so I still desperately want the green Sol Ring over this one, but this would be my second choice for Sol Rings because it's absolutely amazing. I love the flavor of it. The dark altar with the energy pouring in, pulling in on the candles, the skull with its like cracked in top and candles in the eyes. It's just so good. It's got such an epic eldritch kind of flavor. I love it. All right, so let's talk about the final card in the secret layer. This is the Command Tower. So this is a land that taps for 1 mana of any color in your commander's color identity, and this one has been keyed into the concept of black through the artwork and the flavor text. The flavor text says, "It's a bit much, I know, but it reminds my visitors who really holds the power here." And that is Davriel Kane. Now, I have to say, I really like Davriel. I think he's an awesome planeswalker. The story Children of the Nameless that was written by Brandon Sanderson that goes into detail about him is really fascinating. And it makes me wonder where this stronghold is. Where has he built this tower, right? Like, take a look at that artwork. It actually kind of makes me think of, is it Galacticus? If you're like a comic book person, let me know if me saying Galacticus makes sense when looking at the top part of this tower, right? The artwork is crazy because you've got a bunch of these crows and ravens, and you've got the dark, lifeless branches of the trees in the forefront, along with the shadowy top, which gives it that kind of Black Doom feel. And the lightning would add to that, except it's creating sort of a rainbow northern lights effect as well, which actually diminishes the amount of menace to me in a way. The colorfulness makes it less drab and imposing. So I feel like if it was darkened more and didn't have the purple and aqua and yellow coloring in the middle, that it would end up ultimately giving that dark flavor a little bit better. But otherwise, really cool card. So that wraps up all the cards in this particular set. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If you like what I'm doing and enjoyed the video, then click like so YouTube knows you liked it. And other than that, if you love what I'm doing, join my Patreon. I'll see you all for the next video. Big thanks to all my patrons. Goodbye for now.